She walked into her own home and found strangers drinking her wine. That's where this story starts. Not with an argument, not with a warning, with a smile. The kind of smile that tells you someone has already decided this place doesn't belong to you anymore. My name is Holly Reynolds. I'm 34. I've designed 42 houses for other people. Blueprints, load-bearing walls, the exact angle of afternoon light through a kitchen window. I understand structure. I understand what holds things up. What I didn't understand, not for years, was what was quietly collapsing inside my own marriage. The house that nearly broke me wasn't a client's. It was mine. I inherited the cabin in Aspen from my Aunt Margaret. She died in the summer of 2021 at 84. She never married, never had children. She left me the one thing she loved most. The cabin sat at the edge of a mountain town, tucked between pine trees and clean air. Every floorboard in that building, every single one, I sanded by hand. Not because I had to, because I needed to feel like it was mine. It was. Or, I thought it was. It was a Thursday dinner at my mother-in-law Patricia's house when I first felt it. That quiet, invisible shift in the room. Patricia served roast chicken. She watched me cut my meat for exactly 30 seconds before she spoke. "Renting out the cabin," she said. Casual. Almost offhand. Like she was commenting on the weather. "Walter and I were thinking of using it for Christmas. Wouldn't that be lovely?" Belle's first Christmas with Trevor. I set my fork down. Slowly. "We're looking at long-term tenants," I said. "I'll keep you posted." She smiled. That smile again. The one that doesn't reach the eyes. The one that means, "We'll see about that." Across the table, Belle, my sister-in-law, newly engaged, 26 years old, had her phone under her napkin. Her thumbs were moving fast. She didn't look up once. I noticed it. I filed it away. I should have done something with it. Later that night, I texted Mark. "Your mom's not planning anything for the cabin, right?" He took 6 minutes to answer. 6 minutes. For a yes or no question. "I don't think so," he said. "I don't think so." I stared at those words. Then I put the phone down and told myself I was overthinking it. I wasn't. The next morning was Friday. I left Denver at 6 a.m. Coffee in the cup holder. Wilco on the speakers, cruise control at 75. I had a meeting with Atlas Rentals at the cabin at 10. The drive from Denver to Aspen is 3.5 hours when the mountain roads cooperate. That morning, they did. I climbed through Glenwood Canyon, where the Colorado River runs green and the cliffs glow the color of old paper in the early light. I always slowed down in that canyon. Not for safety, because it was the kind of place that asked you to. I was calm. I was finally calm. I should have known. Calm never lasts long in this family. I pulled up to the cabin at 9:47. The front door was unlocked. I remember thinking, that's odd. The rental company wasn't supposed to arrive before 10. Then I heard it. Music. From inside my house. I pushed open the front door. And there she was. Belle. Stretched out on my sofa, shoes off, laughing at something on her phone. 3 of her cousins were scattered around the living room like they'd been there for hours. Because they had been. On the kitchen counter. A $200 bottle of Brunello. Already open. Already half gone. The room smelled like wine and entitlement. Belle looked up. She didn't flinch. She didn't apologize. She smiled. That same smile. It runs in the family, I realized. My mother said it was fine, she said. Not defensive. Almost bored. This house is going to be hers eventually anyway. I stood in the doorway of my own home. The home I had inherited. The home I had restored with my own 2 hands. And I thought about what to say. I thought about what Margaret would have said. Margaret. Aunt Margaret, who had lived her whole life in a stone house outside Boulder, who had never married, who had carried a wound for 42 years without showing it to anyone. When she died, Her attorney, a tall, precise woman named Carla Voss, handed me a leather-bound folder across a glass conference table. Margaret was specific, Carla said. Read the addendum on page 3 when you have a quiet hour. That night alone, I read it. Margaret had written it by hand. Cream paper. Fountain pen. 2 full pages. I can still see her handwriting. The line I remember most. This cabin is for Holly. For her quiet when she needs it. Any guest under this roof for more than 72 hours, or any non-blood relation using it for any event, requires her signature. Then she wrote, I write this because my own sister-in-law took my house in 1979, with smiles and casseroles. I will not let that happen to my niece. I read it twice. Then I closed the folder, and I cried for 10 minutes. Because I hadn't known about 1979. Margaret had carried that for 4 decades, silently, and the only thing she ever did with that pain was build a wall around me before I even knew I'd need one. I had not opened that folder since the week Mark and I got engaged, but standing there in my doorway, looking at Belle's smile, I remembered every word. Something settled inside me. Not rage, not panic. Something colder, more deliberate. Clarity. What I did next surprised them. What my mother-in-law did next surprised me. And what happened 48 hours later, at an engagement party I didn't even know was being planned, surprised every single person in that room. There's a specific kind of dread that settles in your chest when something is wrong but you can't name it yet. I felt it on the dirt road, half a mile from my own cabin. Before I even saw the cars, the mountain road up to the cabin switches through the pines in long, lazy curves. I know every bend, every pothole, every place the gravel thins. I'd driven that road in snowstorms, in grief, in silence. I knew it the way you know the face of someone you love. So when I noticed the road was wet in patches, on a dry, cloudless morning, I slowed down. No rain in 2 days. But the mud was fresh, and the tire tracks in it were multiple. I told myself it was Atlas Rentals. Arriving early. That was the lie I tried first. The cabin came through the trees, and I counted 4 cars in the gravel pad. None of them said Atlas. One of them was Belle's white Audi. I turned the engine off. I sat in the driver's seat. 15 seconds. Just 15 seconds of silence before I had to know. Through the closed windows of my own home, I could hear music. Pop female vocal. Bass turned up too loud for 10 in the morning. I got out. I walked up the porch steps. I pushed open the front door. The living room hit me all at once. Belle was on Margaret's sage green sofa. The one I had reupholstered myself in 2022. By hand, over a long weekend. Legs stretched out. Feet on my coffee table. A glass of red wine balanced on the arm like she was born in that house. Across from her sat Patricia's older sister Diane. 54 years old, cashmere wrap, the posture of a woman who has never once been told no. Beside Diane, Belle's cousin Tara, 25, scrolling her phone. Not even pretending to be present. And standing at my kitchen island. Leaning against my counter, hand around my wine glass, was a tall blonde man in a navy quarter zip. Trevor, Belle's fiancé. I had only ever seen him in 2 photos. On the counter behind him sat the $200 bottle of Brunello, the one I had been saving for Mark's birthday. Open. Cork on the floor. 3 glasses out. 1 already empty. But that wasn't the thing that stopped me. The thing that stopped me was on the dining table. A calendar. Printed. Spiral-bound. The drugstore kind. And across September, October, November, and December, 4 full months, Patricia had drawn thick red lines in Sharpie. Her handwriting filled every blocked weekend. Christmas, Belle. New Year's Eve, Belle. President's Day, Belle. And on Sunday the 28th of this month, a hand-drawn heart. Belle plus Trevor. Engagement. I stood there, holding my rental folder, and felt the room rearrange itself around me. This wasn't an impulse. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was a schedule. Someone had been planning this for weeks. Someone had decided that my cabin, my inheritance, my retreat, the house my aunt left me with a handwritten letter and a lawyer, was already theirs. They just hadn't bothered to tell me yet. One more thing. The wooden moose carving. The one Aunt Margaret bought in Jackson Hole in 1991. It had lived on the table beside the door for 30 years. It had been moved into the coat closet. I could see one antler poking out from behind a row of jackets. Something about that detail, the moose, tucked away, hidden like an embarrassment, made my hands go completely still. Belle finally looked up. She didn't startle. She didn't flush. She smiled. "Oh, Holly. We were just going through some details for the party." Diane raised her wine glass. "Hi, sweetie." Tara did not look up. Trevor set his glass down. He looked at me, then at Belle, then back at me. "Wait. You weren't expecting us?" He was the only person in that room who understood that something was deeply wrong. He just didn't know what yet. I didn't answer him. I looked at the calendar. I looked at the moose in the closet. I looked back at Belle. Then I took out my phone, and I started photographing everything. The calendar. Every page. The wine bottle on the counter. The 4 cars through the kitchen window, license plates and all. The moose behind the jackets. The glasses. The empty cork on the floor. "What are you doing?" Belle's voice had shifted. Not worried. Not guilty. Just annoyed. "Holly, don't be weird about this." I turned to Trevor. "Trevor. Hi. We haven't properly met." Calm voice. Level eyes. "I'm Mark's wife. This cabin belongs to me." A beat. Belle didn't mention that, did she? His mouth opened. It closed. He looked at Belle. Belle looked at me. And for the first time that morning, just for a half second, the smile flickered. "I have a meeting in 20 minutes, I said. I picked up my keys. I picked up my rental folder, still unopened, not a single page touched. "I'll let your fiancé explain the rest." I walked out. I did not slam the door. I didn't even lock it. Because there was nothing in that house I needed to protect from them. Not yet. The only thing that mattered to me was sitting in the bottom drawer of my desk in Denver. A leather folder. Cream pages. Fountain pen. Belle didn't know it existed. I drove down the mountain at exactly the speed limit. Not because I was calm. Because I had already moved somewhere past calm. Anger, I realized, was for people whose only weapon was their voice. I had paperwork. I made it to the rest stop off the highway before I let myself stop. I pulled in. Parked. Sat with both hands on the wheel for a full 60 seconds. Just sat. Then I started making calls. First call. Atlas Rentals. "Hi, this is Holly Reynolds. I need to reschedule for next Friday. There's a family situation at the property. Should we be aware of anything?" A pause. "There are uninvited guests inside. The property will be empty by next week." "Got it. We'll see you Friday." Second call. Carla Voss. Margaret's attorney. Voicemail. "Carla. It's Holly Reynolds. I need 15 minutes. Monday morning at the latest. Sooner if you can. My mother-in-law has given my sister-in-law a spare key to my cabin. They're planning an engagement party there this Sunday. I have photographs. I haven't told my husband yet. I'd like you to walk me through the addendum before I make any moves." I hung up. I looked out at the red sandstone cliffs rising above the highway. Layered. Ancient. Unmoved. I needed to think. Here's what I knew. Patricia had a spare key to my cabin. Patricia had given that key to Belle. Patricia had drafted a 4-month schedule for my property. Without asking, without warning. And she had done all of it while sitting across from me at her dinner table, serving roast chicken and smiling. Here's what I had not done yet. Called Mark. I made a decision in that rest stop parking lot. I would not call Mark next. I would call Patricia. Because I needed to hear her voice while she still thought she was winning. I needed to know exactly what story she was going to tell, before she had a chance to tell Mark first. I called her 15 minutes later. Windows down. Dry pine and diesel in the air. She picked up on the third ring. Holly, sweetheart. That voice. Warm. Practiced. Seamless. How are you, Patty? Not a question. Did you give Belle a key to my cabin? The pause was a quarter second. That's all. But it was long enough. Oh, honey, she said. Her voice softening into the tone I'd heard her use on Mark since childhood. She just needed somewhere nice for the engagement. You know how Trevor's family is. We didn't want to bother you with the logistics. Patty. One word. Quiet. Flat. Final. She kept talking. She didn't stop talking for almost 90 seconds. And I listened to every word. Not because it mattered. Because I was recording what kind of person she was. Storing it, the way Margaret had stored 1979 for 42 years. Not out of bitterness. Out of preparation. I drove east toward Denver. I would tell Mark tonight. In our kitchen. Calmly. Cabinet door closed so the dog wouldn't interrupt. I would lay it out the way I laid out blueprints. Clearly, without emotion, every line in its right place. I would open that leather folder tonight for the first time in 5 years. And come Sunday, every person in that engagement party was going to learn something my aunt had known since 1979. This house has an owner. And she has a signature. She used the word family 3 times in under 2 minutes. I counted. I hadn't said it once. Patricia's voice on the phone was smooth. Practiced. The kind of smooth that only comes from decades of getting what you want, by making other people feel small for wanting anything at all. Holly dear, it's family. Let's not make this complicated. It is complicated, Patty. A beat of silence. Then, firmer. Belle is your sister-in-law. The Whites are coming from Connecticut. We're celebrating an engagement. This isn't a hostile takeover, it's a Sunday afternoon. I noticed she didn't deny the calendar. She didn't explain the key. She didn't apologize for any of it. She just reframed. Called it family. Called it celebration. Called it a Sunday afternoon. As if the words she chose could quietly dissolve the facts I was standing inside. Patty. The cabin is in my name. Of course it is, dear. She said it the way you'd agree with a toddler about which crayon belongs to whom. And of course you want what's best for Belle. That's what family does. The word again. 3rd time. I waited. The silence stretched past comfortable. Past polite. Into something else entirely. Holly, I'll talk to Mark. Don't blow this out of proportion. Have a good Friday. Have a good Friday, Patty. I hung up. Placed the phone face down on the passenger seat. Started the car. And drove the next 2 hours home in complete silence. No music. No podcasts. No rehearsed speeches. There was nothing to rehearse. I would tell Mark the truth. Then I would open the folder. Then I would call Carla. Order mattered. Order was the only thing I could control right now. And I was going to control everything I possibly could. I got home at 4. Mark was already in the kitchen. He'd pulled a beer from the fridge and was staring at it instead of drinking it. That told me everything. Your mom called you, I said. Not a question. Yeah. He looked up. That expression. The one I'd learned to read over 4 years of marriage. The face of a man who had already lost an argument inside his own head. What did she say? She said it was a misunderstanding. That she thought you'd be okay with it. I set my bag on the counter. Did she ask me? Pause. She probably assumed, Mark said. She assumed because someone let her believe she could. I kept my voice level. Quiet, even. Mark, did you ever tell your mother that the cabin is solely in my name? He looked at the beer. I told her it was ours. That word landed like a stone in still water. What did ours mean in that sentence? I meant emotionally. And legally? Legally, I knew it was yours. Did she ask about it directly? He set the beer down. Once. In 2022, right after we got married. She asked when you were going to transfer it into both our names. I felt something shift in my chest. What did you tell her? I told her it wasn't her business. I closed my eyes. One breath. Then I opened them. Mark, do you know what "it's not your business" sounds like to your mother? He shook his head slowly. It sounds like a temporary problem. He sat down at the kitchen table without being asked, both hands flat on the wood, like he was bracing for something. Holly, I'm sorry. I don't need sorry yet. I need you to come with me to Carla's office Monday morning. He nodded. Mark. I waited until he looked at me. The cabin is mine, emotionally and legally. For me, those have always been the same word. Your mother taught you to split them apart. And somewhere along the way, I paused. I let her. His jaw tightened. That stops now. He didn't argue. He didn't defend her. He didn't tell me I was being too hard on her, or that she meant well, or that I needed to see it from her perspective. For the first time in 4 years of marriage, Mark sat across from me and counted along. Counted what was true. What was fair. What had been quietly costing me to swallow, year after year. I didn't cry, but I came close. Saturday morning, 10 a.m. Patricia arrived at our front door without calling first. She carried a casserole dish wrapped in a dish towel. An apology that had no intention of apologizing. I let her in. Mark stood beside me in the kitchen doorway. He did not move to take the dish from her. She set it on the counter herself. Then she straightened up, folded her hands, and said with the quiet authority of a woman who had never once been told no by her own son, Holly, dear, Walter and I think we should talk. I said nothing. She took that as an invitation. The party is tomorrow. Pastor Henderson has been told. The Whitmores land at the Aspen airport at noon. Belle's bridal party is driving up tonight. We have 23 RSVPs. She paused. We can't move it now. She was waiting for me to fold, to sigh and nod and say, fine, just this once. To do what 4 years of training had taught her I would do. I want Belle out of the cabin today. Patricia laughed. Not cruel. Worse than that. Nervous. Like I'd said something so irrational it almost embarrassed her. Honey, you're being dramatic. It's one weekend. Patty. Today. She switched tactics. I watched her do it in real time. The way you watch a magician's hands right before the card changes. Her voice dropped. Softened. Turned reverential. What would Margaret think? She loved her family. I looked at her steadily. Patty. You met Margaret twice. A beat. You don't know what she would think. Patricia's chin lifted slightly. I know what families do for each other. So do I. The room went very quiet. Then Patricia turned to Mark, and her voice changed completely. Younger. Almost pleading. The tone of a mother calling across 20 years. Marky. Baby. Tell her she's overreacting. Mark looked at the floor. He looked at the casserole. He looked at his mother. And then he said 4 words that had never, in 4 years of marriage, been said in that woman's presence. Mom. Holly's not overreacting. Patricia's mouth opened slightly. Just slightly. But I saw it. 4 years. 4 years of Mark quietly agreeing with me in the car on the way home. Whispering you were right in our bedroom at midnight, and never. Not once, saying it in the room where it counted. Until now. Patricia recovered fast. She always did. Mark. We are talking about your sister's engagement party. We are talking about Trevor's family seeing where you all grew up. We are talking about a weekend Belle has been planning for months. Months. I caught the word. Filed it. Patty. I said quietly. She stopped. I'll let Margaret speak for herself. Monday morning. I picked up the casserole dish from the counter and placed it in the refrigerator. Then I closed the fridge door. The conversation was over. Patricia just didn't know it yet. She left at 10:30. She kissed Mark on the cheek on her way out. She did not say goodbye to me. I walked to my desk. Mark followed slowly, like a man not sure he had permission to be there. Before I reached the drawer, my phone buzzed. Belle. Hey Holly. Please don't make this weird. Mom said it's fine. Trevor's parents land in 2 hours. We have the caterer locked. Flowers come at noon Sunday. Be cool. Okay. I read it twice. Then I screenshotted it. Saved it to a folder I had created 2 hours earlier. I named the folder Cabin. I had never made that folder before. The icon on my phone looked small and tidy and completely dangerous. Mark read the text over my shoulder. He said one word. Belle. Just her name. Not angry. Worse than angry. Disappointed. The quiet kind. I opened my laptop. Belle had created a public Facebook event 2 days ago. The cover photo, a stock image of an aspen sunset. The title, Belle and Trevor, Engagement Celebration. The location, the Reynolds family mountain home. Aspen, Colorado. 23 people had confirmed. The party was scheduled from 1 to 4 p.m. Sunday. She had tagged Patricia in the event description. She had not tagged me. I scrolled to the comment thread. Patricia had written, "Can't wait to host the Whitmores at our place." Our place. Mark made a sound behind me. Small. Barely audible. Somewhere between a sigh and a word he didn't finish. I screenshotted everything. The event. The guest list. The comment. The location tag. Then I closed the laptop. I bent down and opened the bottom drawer of my desk. The leather folder was exactly where I had left it in 2021. Tan calfskin. One corner darkened where Margaret's hands had worn it. A fine line of dust along the top edge. 5 years untouched. I picked it up. It weighed exactly what I remembered. Not heavy. Not light. The weight of something you were meant to carry seriously. Margaret had chosen the leather for a reason. She had known, somehow, the way women who have been through something know, that there would come a day when her niece would need to hold this folder and feel the gravity of it in her hands before she opened it. I held it for a moment. Then I opened it. Sunday was coming. 23 people had RSVP'd to a party at my house. A caterer was booked. Flowers were ordered. Trevor's family was already in the air. And not one of them, not a single person on that guest list, knew what was waiting for them. Neither did Patricia. Neither did Belle. But Margaret did. She had known for 42 years. I needed Mark sitting down before I opened it. Not because I was afraid of what was inside. Because I needed him to feel the weight of it the same way I did. He sat across from my desk. I sat in mine. The leather folder between us. I opened it. Inside were 3 things. A deed. A trust ledger. And 2 pages of cream paper, written by hand in fountain pen. I pulled the deed out first. Slid it across the desk without a word. Mark read it slowly. His finger moved down the page and stopped. Holly Reynolds, sole owner. Recorded September 14th, 2021. He nodded. Slowly. The nod of a man absorbing something he can unknow. I pulled out the letter next. And I read it aloud. My voice didn't waver. This cabin is for Holly. For her quiet when she needs it. Any guest under this roof for more than 72 hours, or any non-blood relation using it for any event, requires her signature. I paused. I write this because my own sister-in-law took my house in 1979 with smiles and casseroles. Another pause. I will not let that happen to my niece. I set the letter down between us. Mark, your mother wasn't the first. He didn't speak. Not for a long time. The room held the silence the way rooms do after something true is finally said out loud. When he finally found his voice, it was rough at the edges. "Holly, I'm sorry. I told you. I don't need sorry yet." I picked up my phone, opened the photo of Patricia's calendar from the cabin dining table, turned the screen toward him. He looked at September, October, November, and December. He looked at the heart drawn around Sunday, the 28th. He stared at it for a full minute, not speaking, not defending her, not offering the explanation I had heard 100 quiet times before. She means well. She doesn't realize. She just loves Belle so much. Nothing. Just looking at what his mother had actually done. She didn't borrow the cabin for a weekend, I said. She planned 4 months. "I'll drive you to Carla's first thing Monday," he said finally. "Mark, Sunday is tomorrow." He looked up. "The party starts at 1. The Whitmores land at noon. There will be 23 witnesses. Pastor Henderson will be there." He understood what I was saying before I finished saying it. "You want to do it then?" "I want to do it then." He nodded once. He did not try to talk me out of it. He did not ask me to wait. He did not ask me to think about how it would look. He did not ask me to consider Belle's feelings, or the caterer, or the flowers arriving at noon. He just nodded, and that meant more to me than anything he could have said. Saturday afternoon turned into Saturday evening. Carla returned my call at 5. "Holly, I read your voicemail twice. Walk me through the photos." I told her everything. The 4 cars, the wine, the calendar, the Facebook event with 23 RSVPs, Belle's text, Patricia's casserole, Mark saying ours. Patricia saying this house will be hers anyway. Carla was quiet for 10 full seconds. Then, "What's your timeline?" "Tomorrow. 1 p.m. 23 witnesses." Another pause. "Holly, that is a strong choice. I know. I want to be clear. You are completely within your rights to do this Monday instead. Notice served by courier, handled privately, no audience. I know. But you want Sunday. I want Sunday. Tell me why." I thought about it for exactly 3 seconds. Because Monday she gets to spin it. Sunday she has to explain it to the Whitmores while it's happening. A small sound on Carla's end of the line. It might have been a laugh. "Okay. I'll draft the notice to vacate tonight. For legal wait at the scene, I'll need the Pitkin County Sheriff's Office to serve it. Do you know anyone over there?" "Deputy Ray Olson. I worked with him on a cabin restoration in 2024. Call him tonight." I called Ray at 6. 4 sentences. That's all it took. "Holly, send me the deed and the addendum tonight. I'll meet you at the cabin at 12:45. Don't engage with anyone until I'm there." I sent the documents. Then I called the locksmith. He'd come at 3 on Sunday, after the property was cleared. Mark stood on the other side of the kitchen island making scrambled eggs badly, the way he always made eggs when he didn't know what else to do with his hands. He scrambled them too fast and too hard and said nothing. And somehow, watching him do that small, helpless, well-meaning thing, I felt something in my chest loosen that had been tight for a very long time. Sunday morning, 8 a.m. I dressed in a navy blazer and black slacks. I did not put on lipstick. I was not going to a party. I was going to an eviction. Mark made coffee in silence. He'd been awake since 6. I'd been awake since 5:30. We had not slept well. We had not talked about what was coming. There was nothing left to talk about. I packed a folder. Notarized deed. Trust addendum. Notice to vacate. 3 photocopies of each. The leather folder stayed home. Margaret's letter stayed in my desk drawer. Some things are too personal to bring into a fight with strangers. At 9, I called Carla. She picked up on the first ring. "Ground rules," she said, "no preamble. Do not engage on legal arguments at the scene. Let the sheriff read the notice. If anyone asks you a question, answer factually. Do not debate." Motivation. You are not there to win an argument. You are there to retrieve possession of your property. Understood? And Holly. Yes. You do not have to feel sorry for any of them. I almost said I know, but I didn't because Carla kept talking. Sometimes my clients need to hear that out loud. I hung up, sat in the kitchen with cold coffee. Mark came in with the car keys. Ready? Yes. He looked at me for a moment. I love you. I love you. Drive. We left at 9:15. 3 hours and 50 minutes to Aspen. We stopped once in Vale for gas and granola bars. Mark put on a podcast about the history of bridges. I let it play. I didn't talk about what was coming. Neither did he. But somewhere in Glenwood Canyon, somewhere between the Red Cliffs and the Green River, I realized something. For 4 years, I had been afraid. Afraid of a family dinner going cold. Afraid of Mark being forced to choose. Afraid of being the difficult one. The outsider daughter-in-law who made everything complicated and never quite fit. I had swallowed that fear so many times it had started to taste like normal. But today, driving toward my own property, with a notarized deed in a folder on my lap, and a deputy meeting me at 12:45, I wasn't afraid of a single one of those things anymore. Carla called at 11:15, somewhere between Glenwood Springs and Aspen. One more thing, Holly. I want you to understand the full legal picture before you walk in. Go ahead. You are the sole owner. There is no co-tenancy. There is no rental agreement with Belle, written or implied. That gives her possession beyond what Patricia permitted. And Patricia has no authority to permit anything. She is not on the deed. Walter is not on the deed. She paused. Mark is not on the deed. Mark glanced over from the driver's seat. He was listening. In Pitkin County, Belle has no tenant rights because she is not a tenant. She is a guest who was never invited by the property owner and overstayed without permission. The sheriff reads the notice. They have 24 hours to remove personal belongings. If they refuse to vacate immediately, the sheriff may remove them. You may change the locks today. And Patricia? Patricia will argue. Let her. Pastor Henderson will hear the notice read aloud in front of everyone. A breath. Holly, family understanding is not a legal term. It is not a defense. Your mother-in-law has spent years operating inside a fiction. That fiction will not survive a deed read aloud by a uniformed officer in front of 20 people. Thank you, Carla. After this, take Mark to dinner. Cheaper than therapy. She hung up. Mark almost laughed. He stopped himself, then let half of it escape anyway. It was the first real sound he'd made in days that wasn't shaped like an apology. I leaned my head against the cool window. The mountains outside were the color Margaret always said. Old paper, warm and layered, like something written a long time ago that still held its meaning. We were 40 minutes out when Mark spoke. Holly, I have to tell you something. Okay. In 2022, right after we got married, you know my mother asked me about transferring the cabin into joint names. You told me yesterday. I didn't tell you the rest. I turned to look at him. She asked me 3 more times after that. The air in the car changed. Once at Christmas 2023. Once when Belle got into law school. Once last June. 3 times. He had sat across from his mother 3 separate times over 2 years. Heard her ask about my property, and said nothing to me. Each time I told her it wasn't her business. You never told me, she kept asking. No. Why? He took the kind of breath that means someone has been holding something for a very long time. Because if I told you, you would have asked me to be clear with her. To say directly, the cabin is Holly's, full stop, in a way she couldn't pretend not to understand. Yes, I said quietly. I would have. And I didn't want to do that. Because I was afraid of losing my mother. A long silence. And by protecting that, I lost a piece of you instead. He said it before I could. He nodded. Eyes forward. hands steady on the wheel. Mark. Yeah. Sheltering me from the conflict didn't protect me. It made me invisible. To your mother. To Belle. To every person at that Thursday dinner table for 4 years. I know that now. I'm not angry. I know. I'm tired. He reached over without looking. Put his hand on my knee. Not sorry. He had finally learned that sorry wasn't the right word anymore. This was something older than sorry. Something quieter. A man reaching across 4 years of silence to make sure I knew he was still there. We were 20 minutes from the cabin. The caterer was already setting up inside my house. The flowers were arriving at noon. 23 people were getting dressed in their Sunday best to celebrate an engagement at a venue that did not belong to the family hosting them. Deputy Ray Olson was meeting us at 12:45. And none of them. Not Patricia in her cashmere. Not Belle in whatever she'd chosen for the occasion. Not Pastor Henderson. Not the Whitmores freshly landed from Connecticut. Had any idea what was about to happen to the story they thought they were living in. But Margaret knew. She had known since 1979, and she had spent 42 years making sure that when this moment finally came, her niece would be ready. Family doesn't read contracts, sweetheart. That's what Patricia said. On speakerphone. 90 minutes from the cabin. Like it was the most natural thing in the world. I didn't say anything. I just looked at Mark and shook my head. Let her talk. Mark's voice, when he finally spoke, was the calmest I had ever heard it. Not strained calm. Not held together calm. Decided calm. Mom, we're family. We have read the contract. The contract is exactly why we're driving up. The silence on her end lasted 2 full seconds. Mark Reynolds. Don't you take that tone with me. I love you, Mom. I'll see you in an hour. He hung up. The car went quiet. Not tense quiet. Something different. The silence of a man who had just spoken to his mother as an adult for the first time in his entire life. I did not say good job. I did not say I'm proud of you. Those words would have made it small. Instead, I reached over and turned the Bridge podcast back on. We listened to the Brooklyn Bridge for the next 18 minutes. Margaret would have approved of that bridge. We turned onto the dirt road at 12:38. The gravel pad was full. 8 cars. 3 of them had Connecticut plates. The Whitmores had arrived. Through the cabin windows, I could already see movement. Silhouettes, a banner, gold lettering catching the afternoon light. From inside came music. Something orchestral, tasteful. Someone had curated a playlist for an occasion that was about to become something else entirely. Deputy Ray Olson was in his cruiser at the bottom of the drive. He stepped out when he saw us. 45 years old. 6'2". Full uniform. He shook my hand. He shook Mark's. Bring the paperwork. I handed him the folder. He flipped through it for 30 seconds. Deed. Trust addendum. Notice to vacate. Clean, he said. Let's go. I had not planned to bring the leather folder. But that morning, without thinking, I had picked it up from my desk. It was the second time in 5 years it had left the drawer. Margaret's letter was inside. Original cream paper. Original fountain pen. I would not read it aloud today. I just needed it with me. The way you need the thing that started all of this to be present when it ends. Through the bay window, I could see the wooden moose carving. Someone had moved it back from the coat closet. Belle, probably, trying to make the room look right for Trevor's parents. The antlers caught the afternoon light, exactly the way they always had. Exactly the way they had since Margaret placed it there in 1991. Ray said, Holly, ready. Yes. Stay 1 step behind me when we go in. Let me speak first. Understood. Mark fell in at my left shoulder. Deputy Olson moved to the front. We walked up the gravel path together. The porch steps creaked exactly the way they had the first time Margaret brought me here 30 years ago. when I was small enough to think this place was magic. The front door was unlocked. We stepped inside. 20 people. Maybe more. The dining table had been extended with a fold-out section I didn't recognize. Someone had brought extra furniture into my house, and it was covered with a long white cloth. A charcuterie spread. Fig tarts. 3 bottles of champagne in a silver ice bucket. Already open. A banner hung above the fireplace. B&T. Gold script. Satin ribbon. Above the fireplace I had repointed myself. Stone by stone, 2 summers ago. The music stopped within 3 seconds. Not because someone turned it off, but because the people nearest the door saw the uniform, and then the silence just spread. The way silence does when something serious enters a room that wasn't expecting it. Patricia stood in the center of it all. Cream wrap dress. Pearls. A champagne flute halfway to her lips. She turned toward us, and her face did several things in very quick succession, none of which she could control. Holly, what is this? Not a question. The kind of statement that expects to be obeyed. I said, Patty, this is Deputy Olson, Pitkin County Sheriff's Office. She did not move. Her glass did not lower. Belle was beside the fireplace in a white cocktail dress. Trevor stood a half step behind her, champagne flute in hand, reading the room with the careful eyes of someone who had just realized he didn't have enough information. Trevor's parents stood by the bay window. A tall man with silver hair. A small woman with a navy handbag, held close. Pastor Henderson was on the sofa. Untouched glass of soda water on the side table. Walter stood at the back window, looking out at the pines, not turning around. Walter, who fixed lawnmowers and avoided eye contact. Some things never change. Belle stepped forward. Mom, what? She looked at me. Holly, you can't. I did not answer. I stood 1 step behind Deputy Olson, and I said nothing. I did not need to. The deed was about to speak for me. Patricia did what she always did when the ground shifted beneath her. She turned to Mark. Marky, baby, tell her to stop this. 5 seconds passed. I counted them silently. Trevor's parents counted them too. I could feel it. Mrs. Whitmore's lips parted slightly, as if she were about to lean toward her husband, then decided against it. Mark did not move toward his mother. He stood at my left shoulder. And then, in a voice clear enough to reach the back of the room, he said, Mom, Holly is right. Patricia's composure cracked, just at the surface. Excuse me. She's the owner. I should have said that out loud a long time ago. Belle made a sound, halfway to a sob. This is my engagement. I looked at Trevor. He had been watching Belle. Now he was watching me. His parents had moved, barely, almost imperceptibly, 1/2 step closer to each other. Mrs. Whitmore's hand tightened on the strap of her navy bag. Trevor leaned to his father, said something I couldn't hear. His father nodded once. Pastor Henderson set his soda water down on the side table. He stood up. Slowly. He didn't speak. He simply rose. The way a man rises when he has made a quiet decision to be a witness rather than a participant. 40 years he'd pastored Patricia's congregation. 40 years of her in the front pew. He knew the difference between a misunderstanding and a deed. Walter still hadn't turned from the window. Deputy Olson cleared his throat. He took the folder from my hand. He opened it. The paper made the small, dry, irreversible sound that important documents make when they are unfolded in a room that has gone completely still. I took 1 breath in, 1 breath out. I was exactly calm. Not performed calm. Not held together calm. The calm of someone who has been waiting for this moment since she was 29 years old and read 2 pages of fountain pen in a glass-walled lawyer's office on a Tuesday afternoon and cried for 10 minutes. Deputy Olson cleared his throat a second time, and he began to read. This is a notice to vacate, served Sunday, September 28th, by the office of the Pitkin County Sheriff. The room held its breath. To Patricia Reynolds, Belle Reynolds, Diane Reynolds, Tara Reynolds, and any guests of the above. The property located at. He read the address. My address is owned solely by Holly Reynolds. Recorded September 14th, 2021. All occupants who entered this property without the express written permission of the owner are required to remove personal belongings and vacate the premises within 60 minutes of this notice. Failure to comply may result in police escort or charges of criminal trespass under Colorado Revised Statute 18-4-503. Patricia's mouth opened. Nothing came out. I looked, just once, at the dining table. Patricia's calendar was still there. Exactly where I had photographed it Friday morning. Red Sharpie. 4 months. Her handwriting in every box. Belle had not thought to put it away. I looked at Pastor Henderson. He looked back at me. And nodded. Once. Slowly. He was not on Patricia's side. He was on the side of the deed. Deputy Olson lowered the page. Patricia found her voice. This is absurd. We are family. The Whitmores have flown in from Connecticut. Pastor Henderson is here. We have planned. Patty. Pastor Henderson's voice was quiet. Maybe we should listen. Patricia turned toward him as if she had been struck. He did not look away. He did not soften. He did not offer her the out she was searching for. That was the first crack. Belle turned to Trevor. Trev, baby, do something. Trevor looked at her. His voice, when it came, was low. Measured. The voice of someone asking a question they already half know the answer to. Belle, did you tell me this cabin was yours? The room held its breath for the second time. Belle's mouth opened. Closed. Opened again. Trev, it's complicated. Did you tell me this cabin was yours? His father took a half step forward. His mother put a hand on his arm. The Whitmores were not interested in becoming part of this family's architecture of fiction. They were interested in finding out, in the next 60 seconds, exactly what kind of family their son was about to marry into. Diane reached for her handbag. She did not look at Patricia. She did not say goodbye. She walked to the door and stepped onto the porch. Tara followed, eyes still half on her phone, the rest of her face wishing she had left on Friday. I had not said a single word since Deputy Olson began reading. I didn't need to. The deed had spoken. The notice had spoken. Pastor Henderson had spoken. Mark had spoken. I stood with the leather folder under my arm and watched 42 years of preparation do exactly what it was designed to do. Then Patricia stepped toward me. Her cream dress made a small sound as she moved. Her pearls clicked against the buttons. Her voice, when it came, was loud. Loud the way a glass is loud right before it breaks. For years. She looked at me like I was something she had tolerated for a very long time. For years I welcomed you into this family. I brought you casseroles. I sat through your work dinners. I introduced you at church as my daughter-in-law. She stopped. The room waited. I waited. And then I thought of Margaret. Of cream paper and fountain pen. Of 1979. Of a woman who had carried a wound for 4 decades and never once used it as a weapon. Only as armor. For me. I did not raise my voice. I did not have to. Patty. One word. Margaret said the same thing about her sister-in-law. The room didn't make a sound. Patricia's glass lowered. Slowly. All the way down. And, for the first time since I had known her, she had nothing to say.